Hi, friends. Welcome to the MB.P Podcast, a podcast dedicated to providing mobile bar and event professionals with the information they need to succeed. I'm your host, business coach, and founder of the Mobile Bar Academy, Sarah Murphy. In each episode, the MB.P team will bring you industry experts, information, anecdotes, and opinions with the goal of assisting you in building a profitable, sustainable, and successful business that supports you in creating wealth. I'm excited to share with you today's episode, so let's get started.
Today, we are talking about marketing, and I would love to talk about the resistance that we see to people marketing. When we ran the six-figure blind spot quiz, what we found is that the majority of people, their results were in the marketing pillar. They had a weakness in the marketing pillar. And we know this to be true. We spent an entire year and a half hosting visibility and marketing workshops to support people because that's the number one way people make money. If people know you exist, you get booked, right? And so all these people had a weak marketing pillar, and then no one listened to the marketing pillar podcast that correlated to their weakened pillar. We've seen the impact that marketing has. We know that it works. We know that it plays a huge role in the success of your business, and still people dread it. And so I want to talk about that dread.
Yeah, to your point, like you were also pretty surprised. I thought people would just go straight to the pillar that they had the biggest blind spot. Doesn't look like that's what happened. It looked like people were kind of picking and choosing. The operations pillar had more listens than the marketing pillar, even though it was later in the podcast series, and only 7% of people had an operation blind spot as their biggest blind spot. So there was so much about this exercise and this experiment that really surprised me. But to your point, one thing that became super evident is that the vast majority of people who took the assessment had a marketing blind spot. And this is something that we talk about ad nauseum. Really, I think you and I have made this joke that we could literally just talk about marketing and pricing and nobody would ever want another thing from us. Even though we want to talk about all the things. Marketing, pricing, marketing, pricing, marketing, pricing. 70% of the people who took this assessment either had a marketing or a money blind spot. And marketing, once you get into the ecosystem of marketing, it really boils down to just being visible. And people struggle with that. And I think that what you want to talk about today, if I'm interpreting correctly, is this rampant societal programming around the fear that people have from standing apart from the tribe and being big, which I guess is also standing apart from the tribe, right? We've been trained our entire lives to fall in line and to not be different and to not be too loud and to conform to societal averages, right? And when you have a business, the whole point is not to conform, it's to stand out. And so it feels counterintuitive.
Yeah. And this is across all industries. I come from a totally different background. And what I've seen is that across whatever industry you're in, marketing is the thing that people avoid like the plague. It is the number one thing that you need to grow your business. And really, it's funny that you said the next one was money, because marketing yourself properly is how you can ask for luxury prices. And so it still comes back to the marketing piece. Your pricing's almost never the issue, like you like to say. And usually it's how visible you are. If you go back and listen to the 3 six-figure success series podcasts that we've launched, all 3 of them have one thing in common, and it was that they upped their marketing game. And to your point, people are really uncomfortable with standing out because somewhere deep in their survival consciousness, it's bad for us to stand out. It's literally endangering to us to be cast out of the tribe. And now we live in a world where we have to actively choose that role, right? Whereas before it was something that happened to you and you were shamed and you had to like go live as the village witch or something like on the corner of society. And you're in danger because you no longer have the protection of the tribe. Now that subconscious fear is still there, but you have to stand out from the tribe if you're going to market your services. And so I see it across all industries. People are afraid to talk about themselves in a way that is, they might feel like it's boastful. They might feel like it's arrogant. And that's terrifying. No one wants to be seen as arrogant. No one wants to be seen as boastful, but it's absolutely necessary for you to market your services.
The other thing that I see here is people will default to projecting their marketing efforts on a thing that is not themselves. And we see this with people who are, my rig is my business. So all the pictures are of my rig, all the boasting and bragging of my business is on my rig. My rig is amazing. Don't you want my rig at your event? Look how pretty my rig is. And that is doing yourself and your business a huge disservice, because what happens if that rig gets in an accident? What happens if that rig gets stolen, which we've seen before? What happens if you have a rig that has a motor and it no longer starts? You know what I mean? Like that rig, what happens if a competitor builds an identical version of your rig and puts it in their fleet? Now what do you have, right? The real differentiation that we have as business owners is ourselves. We are the CEO of this company, so we're going to run it in alignment with our values. We're going to run it with the archetypes that resonate with us, whether it's the magician or the jester, whatever that looks like. You're going to choose to serve things that you like. You're going to pick colors that you like. You're going to have a voice in your marketing that resonates with you, right? And so you are your business. So you can try and project it outside of yourself and onto your rigs or onto whatever it is that you'd like. But the reality is that you need to be willing to be big. If you're not willing to show up and talk about your business and brag on your business and tell people how you support them with your business, then it will forever and always remain small. And that's not going to get you the success that you want in this industry specifically. The people who struggle to make this a go are the ones that expect everybody just to book them because they exist, and not because that they have worked on their value proposition, not because they've gone out of their way to go to the networking events and social media and all of the legwork associated with being known. That's really what it is. Like, people need to know who you are, they need to remember who you are, and they need to know how to use your services. And that requires repetitiveness. It requires showing up a lot, saying a lot of the same things, being omnipresent, which is like all the places. It's not magic and it's not a mystery. Like, there's a formula for this. You know what I mean? And so we just need people to actually implement the formula and they'll see results.
Speaking of projecting in a different avenue, I want to bust a myth because there are so many people who, when you talk about repetitiveness or showing up in all the places, people get really nervous about sending too many emails. I've marketed for people before who were like, I don't want to inconvenience the people on my list. Like, they have lives, right? This person was sending 2 emails a week. And I suggested that they send 5 emails a week. Here at Mobile Dev Pros, we send anywhere from 5 to 10 emails a week, depending on what we're marketing at the time. And what I want you to remember, guys, is that your marketing is how you are of service. It's how you are of service. And if people are inconvenienced by your showing up in their feed, your emails, your showing up to a networking event, whatever it is, they can walk away. They can unsubscribe. They can unfollow you. Your job is not to be small enough that people are comfortable with you. And that's the thing, is that like, marketing requires you to get really comfortable with, one, being uncomfortable, and two, potentially making other people uncomfortable. Because other people who want to live in their smallness are going to be uncomfortable or unsettled by your bigness. Your job is never to make yourself smaller so that they're more comfortable. You want to send the emails. You want to show up on social media. You want to repeat yourself every 90 days. And if you struggle with the mindset around showing up to networking events, showing up in people's email boxes, showing up online, just find support. I mean, it doesn't have to be us, but like, we have a support system for you where you can be with other business owners who are also terrified, right? Like, you don't suffer in a bubble. Other people are also terrified of these things. Sarah, you and I, we have each other. We support each other. Find someone who's comfortable with your bigness and supports you there, because that's what it requires.
You have this saying that you got from a past coach of yours that I absolutely adore and really applies here.
Yeah, if you're not turning anybody off, you're not turning anybody on.
The magic there is in the fact that you can't be for everyone. You're for someone. And that's why there's all the memes on social media that are like, look how many different types of bread are in the bread aisle. And I've had people who work with me that are opening a coffee shop, but the location's a huge issue. And they're like, well, there's already like a Starbucks right there. I'm like, great. Have you ever seen a Burger King without a McDonald's nearby? You know what I mean? That's proof that there are people who want burgers in that area. That if there's a Starbucks, they've done the research, all the market research, that there are people in that area that want coffee. And yes, there will always be those diehard people who go to Starbucks every time. But there's also going to be the people that are like, I actually don't really like Starbucks, but I would love a coffee right now. And then you're going to get that business. And so if you are a mobile bar owner or any business owner really, and you're looking around your industry and you're like, oh, I'm really saturated here. There's a lot of other people here. Like, there's no way that I'm going to stand apart. You have something that they do not. And it usually just lies in you being you. But sometimes you can take a look and do the competitive analysis and you can see what services are not being tendered and you can go from there. And that is standard business advice, right? Like find the pain point or the need in the market that isn't being satiated and tackle that. But also, if someone else is doing a thing that you're doing out there, you can be just as successful doing that thing if you just do it a little bit better or a little bit differently. That's really it. We try and overthink these things. We try and, create these complex strategies that if I can just get it perfect, then I can book without having to be big, right? If I can just be the only person that offers this one thing, I'm the only person that has the horse trailer in my market. I hear this sometimes. Well, no one else has a horse trailer yet, so I want to do a horse trailer. Maybe nobody has a horse trailer because nobody wants a horse trailer, or maybe nobody has a horse trailer because they just haven't built it yet. But that's not really the important thing. It has nothing to do with whether or not there's another horse trailer in the market. It's, are you willing to speak directly to a subset of the population who has a problem that you can solve? And in the mobile bar industry, we solve the problem of shitty bar experiences at events. We have a client who's doing like a 5th birthday with a Coachella theme. Amazing. But we've also had boho weddings and disco weddings and corporate events. We had another client who did like a science setup for a corporate event where it was like petri dishes and test tubes and dropper bottles. And by the end of it, you had like a deconstructed, like old fashioned or something. So like, whatever it is that you decide to do, there's a market out there for it, whether it's a lemonade stand or like whatever, right? And it's just about being loud about what you do. If you're loud enough, there's 8 billion people in the world. There's someone out there who's like, I will pay you for that. And that's it. That's really the long and short of it. Like, you don't have to overthink this. Just be loud about what you do, and there are people out there who'll pay you for it.
We live next to the national forest and we have a mobile coffee cart that sits at the entrance. And I drive past Starbucks every morning. And I like Starbucks, but I'll drive past Starbucks every morning to go get my velvet cup coffee because they align with my values. What I want people to hear is that marketing will always be uncomfortable. It's always going to be uncomfortable. And at your next level, it'll be uncomfortable again, right? We just recently started blogging about 12 weeks ago. And the very first blog that I wrote for MB.P was excruciating. Like, it took me like 9 hours. I was so mad. I had to learn like tons of new skill sets. And then the next one was a little easier. And the next one was a little easier. And if we decided to branch out into some new market, it would be uncomfortable again, and every new level, every new thing that we market, it's uncomfortable and we just move through it because that's how we're of service. We can't serve this community if you guys don't know that we exist. So we have to find new ways to tell you that we exist.
Yeah, that we exist and how we serve and support, right? And those are the things that really your marketing should do: who you are, what you do, and how you serve. And if you're getting leads, we talk about this in the 6-Figure Blind Spot podcast, which we'll link the assessment in the show notes. If you're getting leads, but you're not getting bookings, which is oftentimes the messaging piece, right? If you're getting leads, but you're not getting bookings, that kind of ekes into the sales pillar. People will immediately think it's their pricing, or they'll think that nobody wants that thing. Like they clearly don't value it enough to pay for it. Almost always, it has nothing to do with either of those two things. It's that you're not in front of the right people and you're not messaging in a way that communicates your value to those people. Because, and I assure you, there is literally nothing you can think of selling that somebody out there would not buy and absolutely love. You know, I saw like a gaming thing. There was like a conference for a game I've never heard of. And there were like tens of thousands of people at this conference for this game that I've never heard of. And they were like hardcore into it. Like this is a thing. This was their mecca, their pilgrimage, right? And like there's so much about this world that you don't even know exists because from your little perspective, you can't possibly know all the things and see all the things, but there's commerce everywhere. The only thing keeping you from being booked is being loud enough, is being comfortable being loud and making mistakes. That's another thing. You're going to make a lot of mistakes in marketing. You're going to say a thing, it doesn't resonate. I just got off a sales call with someone who's going to join the group program. She's like, I love your sales style. And I was like, I don't know that it's a style, but I've had a lot of these calls. You know what I mean? Like it's just kind of developed into what it is, but there wasn't a whole lot of strategy other than trial and error in that I've said a lot of things and they didn't lead to bookings. And now I feel like I know what people want out of these calls so that I can best communicate my value in those calls and tweak it. When you go to a networking event, try a different thing, try a new value proposition, be in a different room. That's the other thing. I oftentimes hear networking and people are like, oh, didn't work. I went to a bunch and it's like, well, you probably weren't in the right room. So many times we're going to a networking event just to check the networking box, but like they're not your ideal clients and they're not even in the client profile for the business model that you have or the archetype that you're trying to embody. And so try again, fail, try again. And eventually you're going to hit your rhythm. You're going to figure out what works. You're going to find the verbiage that resonates with your ideal client. But it does take showing up a lot and sometimes feeling like an ass about it. But that's part of the process.
You just did a podcast with Shannon and Ryan from Bungalow Coffee out in Las Vegas, and they talked about showing up scrappy, right? They showed up with like a POS little coffee cart that was just kind of thrown together. And he was actually in, where was he? Like Ferrari?
Yeah, it was like Porsche or Ferrari or I don't know, some crazy expensive dealership.
And he was talking about like standing around these $100,000 cars, several $100,000 cars with his like piece together coffee cart. He was like, this has got to be upgraded. And so then, but he landed that deal first. He was in the right room with the right people to land that deal. And then he was able probably then to afford, I would have put in that paid for him to upgrade. And so what you'll find is like when you're marketing, it's scrappy at first and you just have to get it wrong and you get it wrong again. And then slowly over time, it becomes really clear who your ideal client is, what your ideal messaging is. To your point, what sales conversations work to convert and which ones don't. And you got to show up. You got to say yes, show up and get it wrong and do it again. And don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to fail out loud. My business coach used to say that you should be shouting your business from the rooftop. And that's how you market. You just, everywhere you go, you wear your own t-shirt, you talk about what you do, and you connect with people.
Yeah, amen. I think that's a really important part of marketing, aside from being big, right? We were talking about, you got to stand out from the tribe. You have to be willing to be a little scrappy, knowing that you're going to fail. And the reason I am repeating and highlighting what you just said there is because oftentimes we get the analysis paralysis perfectionists and we can't get them out of stop mode. We can't get them the momentum necessary to do the trial and error because they're afraid to put anything out that is less than perfect. And it's all less than perfect. There's no such thing as perfect. It's all a living document. As you continue to grow, you're not the same person today that you were yesterday. You have a different preference on color or fonts. We're coming up with a new brand and already I'm like, I don't know that if that's the font that I want to use for this, right? But we got to start with something. And so eventually you're going to realize that the imperfect is perfect in that at least what's the thing, done is better than perfect. Like these are all catchphrases because they're true. And I know that there's someone here who's sitting listening to this podcast who is literally months into sitting on their business. They haven't told anybody about it. Maybe they only told their close friends about it. They're waiting for that perfect logo. Maybe they're waiting to pay someone for the logo because they see what's possible online. They've been stalking these other mobile bar owners. They see what the other mobile bar owners are doing, and they think that's their starting place. If they can't start there, it's not worth starting. And let me tell you, that's bullshit because they started somewhere imperfect too. And you're going to get there eventually, but you don't have to start there. And I'm the same way where, like, if I see somebody that's doing a thing, I'm like, I want to do that. And so we can't do anything unless it's that. And you're actually really good about resetting that mind frame. You have this saying, and I don't know if it's a formalized saying, but if you resonate with somebody that you see online, that's because that's available to you. And I like the way that you say that because it's available to you doesn't mean that's the thing you need to do right now. It doesn't mean that's who you need to be right now or that's how you need to show up right now. It just means that if you start, that's an option for you as you work forward. And that's the most important place, I think, for us to bring awareness is that you have to start where you're at. You can't start anywhere else. You have to start with what you have, where you're at right now. And you have to be loud about it because that's how you get feedback. That's how you get data from the world around you as to what people want, what people don't want, what resonates, the messaging that works, the messaging that doesn't work is if you're loud about it. And so marketing really is about putting yourself, to your point, Dawn, in uncomfortable situations voluntarily for the sake of experience and data with the expectation that all feedback is good feedback in helping you hone the future version of your business, potentially not your current version, but the future version. And I'm going to tell one little story. I'm reading this book, but it's an anecdote about Colonel Sanders, the fried chicken guy, but the guy who actually created the chicken recipe. He lived out of his car for a little while and he drove around the country to a ton of restaurants trying to convince the chefs to buy his chicken recipe because he thought it was the best chicken recipe. He went to 1,009 places before someone was like, this is great, I'll buy it from you. 1,009. And the author of the book says, I oftentimes think about this because what would have happened had he stopped at 1,000? And like, this is what I'm trying to get at when it comes to marketing. The first time you post a thing, the second time that you do the networking event, the third email that you send, it may not hit, but you just have to keep being liquid about it.
Yeah, a great example of this is Karina's podcast in the Six Figure Success series, where she talks about going to networking events without the intention of making a sale. When you're attached to the outcome in anything in life, you're setting yourself up for failure and disappointment. If you remove the expectation of the outcome, then you free yourself to like be present in that moment. So she was showing up to these networking events like, how can I create a relationship? How can I support you? Maybe I can connect them with someone else. And that just, people love people who love. And so just go in and like be your best self, you know? And guys, because we're turning some people on right now, we got to turn some people off. If you are not committed to getting uncomfortable and you're not willing to throw yourself into the lion's den repeatedly, you're not an entrepreneur.
The actual definition of entrepreneur includes calculated risk. You have to be willing to take risk. And risk is uncomfortable because risk implies that you could fail and you could fail largely, right? And so if you're not willing to take risks, you're definitely not an entrepreneur. But if you're only willing to take small risks, you're only going to be a marginally successful entrepreneur.
Yeah, you take small risks, they create small results, right? The difference between gentle alchemy and violent alchemy. If you're only willing to jump this far, then you're going to see that much progress. And so, guys, if you're listening to this and you're like, I need a good marketing strategy, we have that. You can either join the academy under Marketing Like a Pro. It's the longest section in the academy for a reason. It is the most beneficial thing you can do for your business. If you prefer a la carte, you can visit us at the shop.mobilebevpros.com. I'll link all of this in the show notes and you can buy the marketing mastery course from us. And, or if you're looking for extra support in this game because you need somebody on speed dial to say, I'm really uncomfortable right now and I'm going to do it anyway. We have a whole community just for that in the accelerator program where we help you take your business from inception to six figures fast. And if you've been in the game for a while and you're not seeing the results that you want, the accelerator is the very best option for you because you probably have all the information and you're struggling to implement it. You're struggling to take theory and make it applicable, right? And so reach out to us. I'll link the application for that as well in the show notes. If you have more questions about it, you can always email us or DM Sarah on Instagram.
Yeah, I think what I want to add to this is that we can give you all the strategy, right? We can tell you how many times to do this and we can tell you exactly what to say. What we can't do is from any of our, shop tools or even in the academy to a certain extent, is we can't get you out of your head. We can do that in the accelerator, and we do. And we've had a number of examples where people will bring, their fears or like, I know you said to do this on my strategy, Sarah, but and it's like, no buts, like, you're telling yourself a story here, or what are you afraid of? Why do you have this sense around this thing? And that's the beauty of the accelerator is that we can really get you out of your own head by giving you a perspective that you don't necessarily have access to. When you can see it available out in the outside world, you're much more likely to accomplish that thing. And we have the benefit of working with thousands of mobile bar owners. So we know what's possible and we can look at someone and say, that's a great way of doing it. This is the better way. A small example of that is the story where people are like, the season's over, so it's going to be slow, right? And we challenge people to change that narrative this year. How would we show up if we didn't think it was going to be slow? What would we be doing if we didn't think it would be slow? And as a result, we've got a lot of people who had a really baller Q1 so far, right? And so having someone to push back against the assumptions, the stories you tell yourself, being able to reflect back to you what's possible, what other people are seeing in their business, that's invaluable. And you can't necessarily get that from static programming, which is what you would find in the shop or even in the academy, which the academy is my baby. So I've certainly done my best to support people through static programming in the academy. The accelerator is just super magical because we're able to meet people where they're at when they're there versus the weekly Q&As in the academy.
And April and Shayna are a really good example of this. The podcast that we did with them, the Draysons, they went to a networking event and someone who was a pretty successful entrepreneur was there with them and was talking about like, this is the slow season. And I think Shayna was like, I'm sorry, what did you say? I can't hear you. And he was like, it's a slow season. She was like, what? Like, that doesn't exist for us. We don't know about slow season. And in their off season, they were able to hit, what was it, like 60 grand in a month or something like that? It was crazy. And it was like a super slow season for them. Everybody else was wintering and they were out here like, we don't even know that what that concept is. And that's the power of changing your stories. And she even says, that the mindset support she got from the accelerator was what helped her recognize that's a story that people tell and it's not one that they have to tell. And so we've seen massive success with this. And in the accelerator, you get a personalized strategy where Sarah is going to look at your business and your goals and your market and help you determine what action is going to get you the fastest results to focus on so that you're not just in the academy clicking around going like, okay, I think I need to do this and maybe I'll do that. And it's just information overwhelm. Instead, the strategy, it's the links that you need, the resources that you need, but it's also the very precise guidance that you need to get your business to profit fast.
The beauty of the accelerator is that it meets you where you're at. We have people in there who haven't even done an event yet, and we have people in there who've been in the business for 10, 20 years, and they each have different goals. So it's not a one size fits all. Every strategy is custom created based on where someone's at and what they're trying to achieve. Sometimes it's a pivot, sometimes it's a deepening of the market that they're going after. And I love that part. No two strategies that I've ever created are exactly the same. And sometimes they're not even in the same market. The strategy I'm about to create is going to include the addition of treat cards into their offerings. And so I think sometimes people are like, is this for new businesses or is this for more established business? The accelerator is for any business. Anybody who's started the business or is thinking of starting the business and just wants to skip to what works. I don't want to have to do all the YouTube videos, the crowdsourcing, the asking a friend. They just want a plan. They want a strategy and they want someone who's willing to be on that journey with them. The next step to the accelerator would be you moving into my guest bedroom because like that's how much access that you have. And I think a lot of times we get people who have been burned by coaching And they're really nervous about getting into another coaching program because in the past, and you and I have both done this too, we've invested in coaches and we're like, I actually have very little access to my coach and I don't see a whole lot of value from that. And we've taken all of those experiences and created the coaching program we wish existed for us. And there is no lack of access to, like, you want to 10 PM on a Sunday night, leave me a message. Can't guarantee that I will respond right away, but I might. It really just depends on what's going on. And yeah, the accelerator is really meant for those people that are itching to do the right work. And that was one of the things that we heard from another accelerator member is she's like, I already have 4 businesses and I don't really have the capacity to do this program. And I said, well, how much time would you have if you were working on the right things instead of all the things? And she's just like, mind blown, right? Because a lot of what businesses are working on is noise and it doesn't really produce a whole lot of results. So what if we were able to peek into your business and say, actually, all of this you can stop doing and you just focus on doing these things and you'll see results. And it's just like, whew, room to breathe.
We want everybody in this industry to succeed because we know the power of breaking the glass ceiling on what you can create in a 9 to 5 job and just the pride that comes with having something that you built, something that's successful that you created. And when you're looking out into the world and all of your 9 to 5 friends are like, that's not possible for you. We believe it's possible for you and we have proof that it's possible for you. And so if you want to hang out with people who see your brilliance, we can support you in that.
Amen.
And that wraps up today's episode. I hope it was valuable. I would love to hear from you what you thought. You can drop me a line at hello@mobilebevpros.com or find me on Instagram at mobilebevpros. If you're looking for more valuable mobile bar related content, we have a website full of it. You can find us at www.mobilebevpros.com. And I'd love to see you in our Facebook community, also by the name of, you guessed it, Mobile Bev Pros. Thank you for joining me today, and until next time, cheers.